Good morning to our viewers here in Lagos, Nigeria, and of course the rest of the continent, wherever you might be watching us from. Thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central this morning. As always, we have the next 2 hours to share with you some of the biggest conversations happening here in the news here in Nigeria. We definitely will be touching on the little bit of controversy concerning the return of flights between Nigeria and the UAE, between Nigeria and Dubai. The Nigerian government did announce, or at least, Minister of Aviation did announce that they had settled issues with the UAE government and flights would resume. But it did come with bits of controversy and loads of questions, that, they had started to ask. I beg your pardon, Mohammed Idris actually did put out that special announcement. And then, of course, the question about $10,000 being in your account, which was one of the requirements for every Nigerian who was going to be applying for a Dubai visa, or UAE visa rather, a $10,000 account balance for 6 months, and also a 640 or 640,000 naira payment as part of the processes to apply for the visa. Those aspects raise questions, and many of those questions have been left unanswered. So far, news reaching us from, of course, sources say that the UAE government has denied placing any $10,000 account balance for 6 months requirement, or even 640,000 naira requirement, or payment rather, to apply for a visa. And so, the questions are so many. And of course, we hope that we have bits and pieces of that conversation today. But aside that, Ali Ndume has also been asked to step down as the chief whip of at the National Assembly. He's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, and also bits of drama in Edo State. But of course, with Ali Ndume, there are thoughts, rather, that he's been asked to step down because of his criticism of the current administration. So we will x-ray some of all of that this morning, along with what's going on in Edo State, where Philip Shaibu has now been reinstated as the Deputy Governor of Edo State. These and many more conversations coming your way. Remember, by 8 a.m., you can join the conversation, share your thoughts with us on any of the stories that you find interest in. You can also tweet at us this morning at News Central TV, and let us know your thoughts on any of the conversations that we're having. I am Osawa. Welcome once again to Breakfast Central.
Very good morning to you and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I'm Judith at TV. The main headlines at this hour. We begin in the west of the continent, where the Nigerian government, the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, has submitted a proposal to the Senate for consideration and approval of an additional 6.2 trillion naira to the 27.5 trillion naira 2024 budget. In a letter read by Senate President Godswill Akpabio during Wednesday's plenary, Tinubu specifically requested the withdrawal of 3.2 trillion naira from the Consolidated Revenue Fund for capital expenditure. Additionally, he sought another 3 trillion naira for additional recurrent expenditure for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. The letter also included a request to amend the Finance Act of 2023 to impose and charge a windfall tax on banks, outlining provisions for the administration of this tax and related matters. Away from Nigeria's presidency and now to the Senate, where the Nigerian Senate has removed Senator Ali Ndume as the chief whip, replacing him with Senator Tahiri Mugundu. The change followed a directive issued in a letter by the national chairman of the party, Umar Gunduje, and National Secretary Senator Bashir Ajibola. The letter was read during plenary, and the request was put to a voice vote by Senate President Godswill Akpabio, receiving loud affirmation from all APC senators. We'll move away from that now to state politics, and this time we move to Edo, where the Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja on Wednesday nullified the impeachment of Philip Shaibu as the Deputy Governor of Edo State. In his ruling, Justice Omotosho ordered Shaibu's reinstatement, citing the Edo State House of Assembly's failure to follow due process in the impeachment. The court also invalidated the appointment of Shaibu's replacement. Justice Omotosho held that the allegations used to justify the impeachment did not constitute gross misconduct and were legally unattainable. We move from Nigeria now to South Sudan in the east of the continent, where United Nations says that more than 450 civilians have been killed in South Sudan in the first 3 months of the year, up from 406 in the last quarter of 2023, deploying an increase in violent incidents. The world's newest nation is still plagued by violence and political infighting since achieving independence from Sudan in 2011. A peace agreement 6 years ago ended a 2013 to 2018 civil war between President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar, but key provisions remain unfulfilled. The young nation is due to hold its first elections in December, but international observers say many of the requirements for the polls to take place are still pending. And on to Southern Africa, where South Africa launches the Salamale solar park that is set to provide more than 200 megawatts of clean, renewable energy to Tronox Mineral Sands, part of the American mining and titanium ore processing giant Tronox. They are nearly 400,000 bifacial solar modulars on single-axis trackers spread over around 430 hectares, around 1.7 square miles at the solar park, which is located around a 3-hour drive west of Johannesburg, just outside the town of Lichtenburg. And on to the northern of the continent, where armed groups clashed in a seaside town outside the Libyan capital, killing a woman bystander and sowing panic among beachgoers. Emergency services and media reports said the fighting erupted in Tajura, a town 20 kilometers east of Tripoli, which is popular with families seeking escape from the heat of the capital. The clashes broke out after fighters of one armed group detained a member of rival group. A myriad of armed groups have vied for control of the northern African country ever since a NATO-backed uprising tumbled and killed longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. It's back to Osa and Olive. I'm Judith at TV. Good morning.
All right, thanks a lot, Judith, for those very interesting stories there. Controversial seeing the removal of Ali Ndume. I think we can quickly have you share your thoughts on that one. You know, what you think may have played out here. Some people say it is because of his criticism of the current administration. He did make some really strong statements. I got to watch that interview. Do you think that that's likely what may have played out as well?
I mean, I'm at risk of saying the quiet part out loud, and you just rightfully said it. Could it be opposition? It kind of looks like it because of what the cards that is being bared out in front of us, what we are seeing. And it begs to ask the question about opposition and the question about accountability and being able to speak truth and then being persecuted for that or being heavily sanctioned for that. We've seen this time and time again with the House. We had situations where people of other or representatives of who are of other parties like Labour Party or the PDP who have come out to oppose either one bill or one law, and what happens is they are either quieted or they are criticized for it or they are sanctioned in one way or the other. We've seen this time and time again, and this is just another in all of the lines that we've seen. We've seen this with women when they come out, especially during the new anthem or the old anthem bill that was signed into law to now become the new anthem. We've seen this too many times as well. There was a time where a certain senator came out to question the budget and the bill for the budget, saying that this looked like it was padded. And what happened to him? Not only did he lose positions, but he was also they tried to suspend him. So when we start to look at these situations, it begs to ask a bigger question: what is happening to opposition? What is happening to people and representatives and government officials who want to speak up against issues, who want to be a voice to the people? So,
but I'm sure that we'd have to eventually probe this conversation further along with the show when we go on with the show this morning. Today, thank you. We'll see you again shortly. The Federal High Court in Abuja has reinstated Philip Shaibu as the Deputy Governor in Edo State. Now, Justice James Omotosho held that his impeachment by the Edo State House of Assembly was illegal and in gross violation of the provisions of both Sections 188 and 35 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Justice Omotosho also dismissed Philip Shaibu's suit, challenging the nomination of Asu Ighodalo as the People's Democratic Party candidate for the 2024 Edo State governorship election. Joining us now to give us further update on this is News Central's correspondent, Marvelous Obumanu. Good morning, Marvelous. What's going on with this story? I know you've been following it closely.
Well, just like you did mention, Justice James Omotosho yesterday reinstated Philip Shaibu as the Edo State Deputy Governor, saying that his impeachment was illegal and against the Constitution, and therefore ordered a perpetual injunction saying that the Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki and the Edo State House of Assembly should not bar the Deputy Governor from going about his lawful duties as a Deputy Governor, and also instructed the Inspector General of Police to return his security details back to him, and of course his salaries, allowances, and benefits from April the 8th, when he was, impeached, till when their current administration will be expiring, which is as at November 11, which is 4 months from now, that all those salaries should be paid to him and all. And it aroused a lot of concern, because the same Philip Shaibu also lost out one of his cases in court yesterday, where he was challenging the candidacy of Asu Ighodalo, claiming that he forged his permanent voter's card, and the court held that it was statute bad, it was a pre-election matter, and that he failed to prove beyond all reasonable doubt that Asu Ighodalo forged his permanent voter's card. In fact, the Independent National Electoral Commission actually validated that the voter's card used by Asu Ighodalo was authentic voter's card, and therefore the case was struck out. So it was a mixed feeling for him. At some point, he's been restored as the Deputy Governor of Edo State, and at one point he has lost his case. But you're aware that the Edo State House of Assembly, and of course the government said they are going to appeal on the case, and of course they have written to the Court of Appeal for a stay of execution pending the determination of appeal at the Court of Appeal. So, but beyond that, let's also look at the economic dimension, because there are some concerns that if you're going to pay Philip Shaibu his arrears, benefits, and all from when he was impeached till November 11, then what happened to the Marvelous, he is still acting as the Deputy Governor and all? And then there are concerns that, with all that is happening, where are the people of Edo in the center of all these political meets? And you're aware that this is not the first time we are seeing this particular political meets. Sometime in Imo State, during the tenure of Owele Rocha Sokorocha, both him and the Imo State government, State House of Assembly, impeached Martin Agbaso then 8 years after, the Imo State High Court reinstated him back and said all his salaries, allowances, and all in the last 8 years should be paid to him. So we're still expecting what will be the outcome of the appeal filed by the Edo State government at the Court of Appeal. So it's still, a developing story that everybody is, on the lookout for.
Yeah. Is there any clarity as to what was stated as the reasons why this was overturned? I know it says that the impeachment wasn't carried out lawfully. Is there any clarity as to how exactly they got the impeachment process wrong?
Of course, what the court held that it was against the Constitution and it was unlawful, because if you look at the way the whole impeachment stuff happened, the Edo State House of Assembly was the one who passed the vote of no confidence on Philip Shaibu, and therefore he was impeached. But the court, by its own wisdom, looked at the whole situation surrounding his impeachment and then said it was illegal. So it is when we go to the Court of Appeal, then at the higher court, we will know in clear terms what the circumstances surrounding the legality in that particular impeachment. They will be the one to interpret better. But of course, you know that even when the Court of Appeal must have given his own judgment, whether it is in favor of Philip Shuaibu or the Edo State government. They will also go to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land. But all this is just in the next 4 months because their tenure is going to expire by November. So we just have 4 months. So, of course, you know that all these things takes time too, from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court, depending on when the election will be held in the state and when the government will hand over to whoever that won just in the next 4 months. So, I mean, people are looking at to just 4 months remaining. What do we have? So, I mean, it's a serious issue, especially looking at what had the soured relationship that happened between him and his, the governor, which led to his, impeachment and all. So for him, yesterday, he said that, I mean, the court has vindicated him and, has cleared his name. So he was very happy about the turn-up of events. All
right. Marvelous, Obomanu. Thank you for bringing this update. We'll have you join us as we get further updates on this story. Now, just to re-emphasize all that we've discussed with Marvelous, it's 4 more months, and everyone is wondering what exactly is going to happen in the next 4 months. To highlight again that in a dramatic turn of events yesterday, the Federal High Court in Abuja reinstated Philip Shuaibu as the Deputy Governor of Edo State, ruling that his impeachment was unlawful and unconstitutional. The court has ordered that Shuaibu's salaries and allowances be paid in full, dating back to April when he was removed from office. Additionally, the court has instructed the Inspector General of Police to restore Shuaibu's security details. In a move to prevent further interference, the court has issued a permanent injunction blocking any hindrances to Shuaibu's ability to perform his duties.
However, the Edo State House of Assembly also appealed the decision and filed a motion to pause the ruling pending the appeal. Now, despite this, Governor Obaseki has declared that Godwin Omobayo will remain in office as acting deputy governor until the appeal is heard. Shuaibu was impeached on April 8, 2024, after being accused of disclosing confidential government information. We also have joining us this morning Honourable Billy Osawa. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
All right. I don't know if you can provide some clarity as to what the ruling says or how exactly the judge feels that the impeachment process wasn't properly carried out. I did, take a look at it, and the only thing that I could spot is that Philip Shuaibu didn't show up to defend himself while the House of Assembly, of course, was carrying out its investigations into allegations against him. But is there any other thing that was pointed out as, one of the ways that they got the impeachment process wrong?
Thank you very much. First of all, in all of this, you still have to go back to the judiciary to interpret the law, the Constitution of the Federal Republic. In this case, it has been categorically stated that Section 188, subsection 11, actually define what gross misconduct is. This actually is being clarified here that gross misconduct of the Constitution, in the first place, there was no basis for it. When you're talking about what were the allegations, one was he was divulging government information. For your information, this so-called information they're talking about divulging was not classified. So I'm sure from what we've found out, Philip Shuaibu had to, at some point, make some statement as somebody that was a potential aspirant or candidate of the party. But again, if you are taking that as divulging government information, it should have been established by the Edo State government that this was a classified information. Divulging that information actually means Philip Shuaibu was actually going against the law. So it has been established by the court now and by the judge that that was not anything in violation of the law. So again, we have to go back to that Constitution because a lot of what we are seeing here is what has become a tradition in Edo State, where Governor Obaseki can come up, with all trump-up charges just to have his way. And go back, to history, not too long ago, where he actually denied 40 members of APC by not swearing them in, and 4 years, they never sat in the chambers. He had his way. So to him, he has found a way to actually even flaunt the laws, of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But this time, I think he just got unlucky. So again, we need to look at this. There was really no basis, of impeaching Philip Shaibu in the first place. For your information, I'm not PDP, I'm APC, but again, I'm a federal lawmaker. Anytime, we find even a governor, flaunting the laws, we frown at it. So again, some of their, legal advisors should advise them properly anytime they are violating the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because that's something we as federal lawmakers actually, sworn to uphold. We are making these laws, but other people are coming to violate these laws. So I think the court, whose mandate is to interpret this Constitution, has come out to, state categorically that Section 188 sub 11 and Section 35, that the government of Edo State, has actually violated the laws. And you're talking about Philip Shaibu was impeached, by allegations of gross misconduct and divulging this information. And the law is now saying, no, that's not the case. Instead, it's the Edo State government, that actually, or let me say the governor now, that actually, violated the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
So what does this now mean for how, governance will take place in Edo State? How do you see that this would impact governance in the next 4 months, before the elections eventually come up?
Well, again, we need to go back to, the law. Yesterday, Philip Shaibu, by the court, was reinstated as the Deputy Governor of Edo State. And again, going by the law, I'm sure his House of Assembly and the governor, they've actually gone to court to appeal, and with the stay of execution in place, and we know what that means. So until that appeal court judgment comes out, I'm sure, the present Deputy Governor, Godwin Omobayo, remains the Deputy Governor because of the stay of execution. That's the law. But again, we know we need to go through all these processes. And Governor Obaseki understands this too. What he's doing is buying time. Even before getting into all this, I can tell you that he was very sure of what he was doing. But he knows how to buy time. He has 4 months to go. So he's going to drag this whole thing to Supreme Court. And at the end of the day, he's going to make sure Honourable Philip Shaibu does not come back to that seat. But the good thing about it is, is the law. If at the end of the day, they get to Supreme Court and the Supreme Court is going to uphold, the judgment of High Court, if that's what Appeal Court goes by, then at the end of the day, they're going to pay him back all his entitlements, which is why, Honourable Philip Shaibu will still continue to fight. It's not just whether he's going to still sit there in the next 4 months, but at the end of the day, is he going to get all his accrued entitlements? And I think he's going to fight for Supreme Court. So we are just here, we are watching, but I'm APC. Am I happy this is going on? Of course I am, because we know for the past 8 years what the people of Edo have been going through. And this time we are saying our people has gone through a whole lot. This is all distractions. The time they should have governed, they're going to court, fighting each other, all these internal wranglings and all that. The people of Edo have suffered this, and they are still suffering this. That's why APC said, you know what? Come 21st September of this year, APC, Edo people will come out en masse to vote for APC so that we can right all the wrongs within the past 8 years and just continue from where Governor Adams Oshomole stopped. Edo State needs development. Everything in Edo right now, it has a standstill because of all these distractions. So we just cannot sit here and watch PDP, and his members drag a state as big as Edo, down like this. So we are just tired of all this.
Yeah, Honourable. So now you've talked about the elections. Let's also get your thoughts really on Monday Okpebholo's run for governorship in Edo State. I mean, if you follow closely, it doesn't seem to be part of many of the conversations. What do you think might be happening, and Why do you have that much faith that the people of Edo State would remember him when the elections, of course, come?
Not remember him as Okpebholo, remember APC as a party. Remember APC party, APC, that's the party.
Yeah, but your candidate is Monday Okpebholo. You know, it's the people of Edo State.
Yes, yes, the people of Edo State will remember Okpebholo and remember APC as a party. And for your information, Okpebholo is a sitting senator. Okpebholo is from Edo Central, where historically we know is a PDP zone, is a PDP district. You know, this is the first time an APC candidate is taking that seat of Senate. Why did you think the Esan people came out to vote for Okpebholo? Because Okpebholo is a man with few words but more action. If you go to Edo Central, you will find a man that was not a senator, that was actually working more than a sitting governor. A man that will come out and bring about infrastructural development for his own people. A man that will put buses on the street for his own people. A man that will drill boreholes for his own people. Every single thing, you know, a sitting governor was expected to do, this man was already doing, building houses for widows. So at the end of the day, he was able to build goodwill, you know, with his people. That's why they all came out en masse to vote APC for the first time, to send him to Senate. So again, we understand that the empty vessel makes the loudest noise. So Okpebholo does not have to go around making noise to show that he can deliver. This man has a track record. He has a history. Look at the people he's running against. Aswan does not have any history. Yes, he's well known in Nigeria, but he has not put not even one borehole in his own village where he comes from. He does not have one block in his own village where he comes from. He cannot even express himself in his place where he says he comes from. Who does that? You go to your own fatherland, you can't even speak your language. Rather, you have to use an interpreter. So we go by antecedents of these candidates. Of course, you know, I have great respect for Akpata, but the truth is, it's not his time yet. He's just coming in now for people to know about him. Yes, he was the NBA president. He's a very good guy. But at the end of the day, you are not looking at only the candidate. Look at the structure on the ground. Edo State is not ripe enough for Labour Party, you know, to take the governorship seat. I mean what I'm saying. If you do your research, you will find out that is true. You only hear Labour in the cosmopolitan city of Benin. After that, go to the Edo Central, go to Edo North. Labour is non-existent. Okay. So again, yes, they might have a fine candidate, but they don't have that structure to deliver for that candidate. But for PDP, I'm telling you, with all these internal wranglings going on, every single day, we are PDP members decamping to APC. What message does that send you? That tells you a house that is divided against itself can never stand. So we are working very hard as APC to deliver for APC and Edo people come 21st September 2024. That's just
and I'm really glad that you've talked about the, you know, people leaving one party to join the other party. We did see that Dan Obi, Philip Shaibu were expelled from the PDP. Do you see them maybe merging forces with the APC? And if you look at the APC's performance on the federal level, would you be able to say that that is an encouragement for how the APC would perform at the state level in Edo State?
Well, thank you very much. You see, this is not a one-size-fits-all. First of all, let me go back to your first question of if Danobi and Philip Shaibu will merge fences with APC. Of course. What do you expect? If your people don't value you and others are reaching out to you and show value that they have, what would you do? Of course, you have to go to where you are respected. And I'm very sure at the end of the day, they would actually work with APC to deliver for the people of Edo. It's not just about APC, it's about the people of Edo and what they are going through right now. They are talking about what is happening in Central. We can't use that at this time. And I must tell you, I'm very proud of the government of our President Tinubu, all we need is patience. We are seeing the policies. Like I always say, you cannot expect a house that has been poorly constructed to be roofed without poor construction. At some point, you have to break down some parts of that building to fix it properly before you put a roof, if you really want it to stand the test of time. That is exactly what's going on right now. Yes, we are all going through all these pain. Nigerians are going through a whole lot. That is why we are all fighting every day to make sure we get it right. So if you go back to the National Assembly, go and look at some of the motions that have been moving. Those are motions that are people-centric. Those are motions that I know that, if we follow them, to the letter, you will find out these are some of the things that will bring succor to the Nigerian people. But again, in anything we do, we always want to factor in that time. It's the time, it's the patience we need. We will continue to plead with our people to give us
Honourable Osawa,
and we know things will turn around.
Honourable Osawa, just
coming back to Edo State, I am telling you, Edo State is a peculiar state.
Honourable Osawa, I just want to, we would like to wrap up the conversation here, but the house that you're speaking about that is poorly built or is being reconstructed, I'm not sure which term exactly, has been in APC control for the last 9 years. It's not, the current administration didn't just take over office. It has been APC run since 2014. And so whatever it is that has gone wrong with this house, it's, largely also because of the same APC government. I don't think Nigerians forget that. The current administration
I'm glad you are bringing that up, sir.
Yeah.
But don't forget, Nigeria's problem did not start 9 years ago. I agree with you that a lot of things went wrong, within the past 9 years. But again, go back from 1999. We can state so many things that went wrong. But again, this is not going back now to start passing all this blame. How do we fix the problem now? We are here now. Talking about what has passed is not going to help us fix anything. Yeah, we can look at it, not to make the mistake in the future. But again,
it's just going to be a compass that I believe that the people in Edo State would use. But we're out of time. We would like to speak with you again. Thank you very much for joining us, Honourable Philip Osawa.
Thank you very much.
We'd love to speak with you again, and have a great day ahead. Thanks for your time. All right. We'll take a short break. Away from Edo State, we'll move into other things. Very likely the National Assembly and the bits of drama that is also going on over there right after this very short break. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Ali Ndume has been removed from his position for speaking up, it is said. The Nigerian Senate removed Ali Ndume from his position as the Senate's chief whip for making unguarded utterances that are against the federal government. Now, this is according to a letter from Abdullahi Ganduje, the national chairman of the APC, and Bashir Ajibola, the party secretary to the Senate.
Now, last week, Ali Ndume told journalists that President Tinubu has been caged in the presidential villa, and that some forces are preventing well-meaning Nigerians and people in government from physically discussing the truth with him. He claimed that the situation did not allow the president to know that many Nigerians are hungry. Clearly, Ali Ndume's comments maybe rubbed the ruling party the wrong way, as Ndume has now been replaced by Senator Taher Monguno from Borno North local government area. Now, joining us is Public Affairs Analyst Jide Johnson and National Publicity Secretary for Parliamentary Advocacy Network, Dominic Lancha, who will be joining us in a bit. Jide Johnson, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you.
All right. Ali Ndume's statements, first of all, a lot of, people applauded him, when they saw that interview. Some of the things that he said, that is, he struggles to sing as the president. The people around Mr. President seem to be shielding him from the truth and from understanding the true situation, in Nigeria. So, two things that I want you to respond to. First of all, your reactions when you heard that he had now been removed as the chief whip, and then second, is that a good enough excuse to say that the president is being shielded from seeing the truth about what's going on with Nigerians?
Well, first, let's look at it from the second angle. Every president in Nigeria, we've always heard about the issue of this cabal.
Yep.
And this protective shield around the president and people not getting access to the president in order for them to get to know about the reality of things that is happening around their government. And we have seen over time that outside of government, a lot of presidents have come to realize that they were far away from reality of what is happening in the larger side. And I think that's the picture that Ali Ndume is talking about. Now let's come to Ali Ndume's role and responsibility and the party discipline issue. One, Ali Ndume is the chief whip of, and what's the role of the chief whip? The chief whip is to enforce party discipline and ensure that every member of the party, every member of the Senate votes according to a party policy and the party position. So as the chief whip, who is the chief enforcer of the party's discipline and policies in the Senate, that shouldn't come from him in terms of the responsibility and the job description of the role he's playing as the chief whip. There is a term which is used in legislative term, when you go contrary to the party position, they call it lose the whip, and then that means that you'll be expelled from the party. So he's aware of the trappings of the office in which he's holding. So when the chief whip lose the whip, then he needs to be whipped. And that, I think that's what the party has done. But there are issues which he raised. We talked to the larger issues of democratic institution that we have in Nigeria. If you have a party, if you have a structure, if you have a government in which the chief whip, who happens to be a principal officer of the party in the National Assembly, does not have access to the president of the Federal Republic, it tells that something is wrong with the structure of government that we practice in Nigeria. And I think that's the larger picture. We should look beyond the removal of Ali Ndume as the Senate chief whip, or his removal as the vice chairman of appropriation committee, but look at the larger issue in terms of what type of structure do we have for governance in Nigeria. Because if you look at these parties, what is the structure that is put in place for policy exchange between the legislature and the executive in terms of driving public governance in Nigeria? You see that in most cases, the executive is running at one end, the legislature is running at one end. And that's why we have not been able to get deliverables of democracy in, and that's the picture Nigerians should talk to. If you look at the constitution of the party, in the constitution of the party, there is what is called the national caucus of the party, in which you have the president, the president, the speaker, if the party produces the president, the speaker, the Senate president, and all of this, for them to come together at the party level to have an harmonious agreement as regards what will be the policy of the government. But what we have seen in Nigeria is the failure of the party system, because the national chairman, who should have provided the leverage through which the legislature and the executive will interface in order for them to have a common ground, didn't provide that.
But I would like that you respond. There's some other thing that I asked. Is that we've heard this excuse before, this whole idea of a cabal, and the whole idea of the president is not aware of what the reality of Nigerians, is that going to be a good enough excuse to give any Nigerian president after 4 years to say that, oh, he didn't know because he was being shielded?
No, it falls on the purview of the president. You know what FDR, one of the famous American presidents, said? He said, the buck stops on my table. Now, it's the responsibility of the president to put in place structures and systems that allows him to know the reality of what is happening in Nigeria. Not for him to be within the cocoon of the presidency, of Aso Rock or his presidential jet. So it's, at the end of the day, it is not Ndume's administration. It is not Ganduje's administration. It is Bola Tinubu administration. And that's the reality in which most chief executives don't understand. Now, your aides might shield you. You see, the most important thing about leadership is about being open to criticism, being open to constructive criticism. Now, a leader should not be interested in hearing what he needs to, what he wants to hear. He should be interested in hearing what he needs to hear. He should be interested in allowing people to tell him the truth. And we say the truth is bitter. And
okay. We'll still explore this conversation further. We're joined today again by the Publicity Secretary for the Parliamentary Advocacy Network, Dominic Lancha. He's the National Publicity Secretary. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Lancha. You've heard the conversation and the point of view of Jide Johnson. What are your thoughts? First of all, do you think that there was some element of truth to what was being said by Ali Ndume? And do you approve of the manner in which it has been handled? Yes.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and good morning Nigerians. I think your caption really captured it very well. For me, it's an unguarded, utterance or statement, coming from a high-ranking member of the National Assembly, Senator Ali Ndume, stating the obvious. Because what Senator Ali Ndume said is the obvious, the reality we have found ourselves, in. And let me say at this point that truly it's not about Ganduje administration, it's not about, it's not also about Tinubu administration, it's about APC administration. So for me, the way and manner he stated the obvious was the issue. He's a high-ranking member of the National Assembly. Every sitting they have caucus meeting or leadership meeting before they goes into, sitting. Why not raise some of these concerns there before coming out to the media? Even though he said that, yes, he was encouraged by his constituent because he's representing the people to go and grant that interview. I think that he made a mistake, by going outrightly or directly, to the media, to state some of those things that he mentioned. Having stated that, he's not, in a way helping the party because he's demarketing the party. That is the issue, and that is what led to the leadership of the party under the able leadership of His Excellency, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, to write to the Senate to say that he should be sacked, he should be relieved of his position as the chief whip. Again, we have to be very objective about this because it's a very dicey situation that diplomacy is highly required. Ndume have stated obvious, but the action of the Senate has portrayed them as a rubber stamp. I don't think that the way and manner they relieved him of his position is quite okay, because believe me, whether you like it or not, Nigerians are with Ali Ndume on this. But like I said, the way and manner he went about it, if I were in his shoe, I would have written a personal letter first to the president or even to the leadership of the party to say, this is what is happening under this administration, and it's not all going well. Nigerians are hungry. Some of these things will demarket our party. Was he able to do that, or has he ever done that? If he has not done that and he went directly to the media to grant that interview, I think it is wrong. It is demarketing to the party, and it's not ethical. As a high-ranking member of the Senate, he should have also raised this issue, like I said, at the caucus meeting of the National Assembly of leadership, so that they could find a way to communicate him, to say that the president is not accessible, to members of the National Assembly or ministers. I doubt it. We have seen in the past where, the president have granted audience to members of the National Assembly, where they discuss one or two national issues,
Well,
so
I think, Mr. Lancha, I think
the channel of the National Assembly to reach out to the president.
Yeah, Mr. Lancha, I think he was describing. Kindly hold on, Mr. Lancha.
Stated obvious.
All right. I think I don't think the situation is that Mr. President hasn't seen or met with members of National Assembly at all. I think he also tried to establish, the fact that he himself, Ali Ndume, has only met with Mr. President, or I think he only had one encounter with him outside official, duties. And he said that during former President Olusegun Obasanjo's time, if you wanted to see Mr. President at any time, within a 24-hour time frame, you would have access to him, which is not the case now. And that's what he was pointing out.
There are processes in meeting the president. There are channels, there are protocols, that you need to go through for you to be able to meet with the president. First of all, what are you bringing to the table? What are you coming to discuss, with the president? The chief of there is there. If there is clearly, reason for you to see the president, you will see him. But if there are no reasons for you to see the president,
but it is within
this issue that
Mr. Lancha, it is within Ali Ndume's.
I think he should have gone through the leadership, of the party. I mean, of the National Assembly or the party, to communicate to the president that this is the reality Nigerians are facing, that this is what is happening, in the country. You see, Ali Ndume cannot also exonerate himself from the challenges Nigeria is going through. He has been in the National Assembly since 1999 till date. If I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected.
Yeah. All right, hold on. I wanted to just chip in.
Completely from that.
Mr. Lancha, hold on. I wanted to just mention that, yes, there are processes with which you can see Mr. President, but it is within Ali Ndume's rights as a person, as a member of the National Assembly, as a member of the APC, to express how he feels about his proximity to Mr. President. And if he feels that even all those pathways through which you can reach out to Mr. President are not working, then he can also state it. It's not necessarily that he's maybe he's overreacting or he's lying. And just to, he's simply just stated the way that it is, for himself.
Before you respond, just to add to what he said, we cannot say categorically that he hasn't tried all the other options to get across to the president, and all of that failed before he resorted to this unguarded utterance reference.
There's that as well. But hold on, let's bring back Judy Johnson. Kindly hold on, Mr. Lancha. Kindly hold on, please. All right, we have another guest, Judy Johnson. I would like that you also share your thoughts on other things that he said. He described the government as a government running on a kakistocracy and kleptocracy, which were two words that he used during that interview.
Well, if you look at the image we saw, the visuals we shared, when he talked about kakistocracy,
yes,
you see sitting behind the president, wearing the military uniform, is the aide-de-camp to the president. Have you ever seen that in any other climate? Beside him is the National Security Advisor.
Is that a military?
And that speaks to the narrative of which Ali Ndume is talking about. Now, if Ali Ndume as the chief whip and one of the high-ranking member, because my colleague said he's been in the Senate since 1999, because what you need in the legislature is actually experience. That's what goes for the legislature. And you could see that he did a comparison of different administrations in terms of access. So if Ali Ndume, a high-ranking member of the APC and part and parcel of the leadership of APC in the Senate, could not assess the president, who are those that are having access to the president? These are the key questions you need to ask, because there must be an interface between the legislature and the executive. And he's complaining about, and I'm speaking even to the National Assembly themselves, they themselves should think twice before they elect the leadership of the Senate, because he talks about the failure of those that are in charge of the National Assembly in creating access. Because if they have elected somebody that is proactive, somebody that is independent, somebody that represents, that established the independence of the legislature, they will have been able to assert their role and they could get access to the president. My colleague was saying that they should go to the chief of staff. Can you imagine? It is contrary to the principles and the tenets of democracy. We are not talking about monarchical government. We are not talking about military government. You are talking about democratic government. And each of these individuals are elected and are given mandate. Now, Ali Ndume is not acting as Ali Ndume, the senator representing Borno South. Ali Ndume is acting in his capacity as the chief whip of the National Assembly. So the personality that he carries, the responsibility that he carries, should give him access to the president within the time frame of 48 hours. And those are the issues. Other issues which he spoke about the hunger, about what is in life, they are the reality of life. And in most cases, if you're, okay, look at it. How do you, when the executive are campaigning for office, what do? They move closer to the people. You can access them, you can get to them. But the moment they are elected, they are shielded. That's the reality. Look at the security aid that surrounds them. Look at the type of vehicles. The cars they drive are screened. Are they not screened? And they drive at what? At fast speed. So they don't even see what is even going on the street. And they don't even have access to what is going on, to the truth. They have aides that are feeding them with wrong information. And that's what Ali Ndume is speaking to. But it's the manner of approach. Because as a key member of the party, as a strong member of the National Assembly, there are other channels. As he explored, like my colleague pointed out, he could have written a letter. He could have adopted the Obasanjo Obasanjo approach. After he has written his letter and they didn't attend to his letter, he makes his letter public.
And also, do you think that it's maybe, I don't know, how do you foresee that he will handle it? I'm seeing here that he's been made to chair the Senate Committee on Tourism.
You should know that I think the way the National Assembly went about dealing with this issue, it's not appropriate. I think that everybody deserves fair hearing. I think that this is the first infraction he's committing, and I think that he should have been given an opportunity to explain himself, and disciplinary action should have been taken by the Senate, not an extraneous body. Not an extraneous body like the national chairman writing that he was not elected as the chief whip by the party. Yeah. He was elected by his members. So he should have given the institution of the National Assembly to at least enforce some disciplinary measures before it gets to the party. Yeah. Those are the things that I think that are wrong with our system. And until you put in the right system, we don't get the right result. Those are the issues that are wrong with public governance in Nigeria.
All right, let's bring back Dominic and Lancha. You know, and I want you to also respond to something that I asked earlier about his allegations or his views that the government is a government of kakistocracy, which is a government run by the least qualified and the most unscrupulous citizens, and also a government of kleptocracy, referred to as a thievocracy, basically a government run by a lot of corrupt leaders. What are your views on those two terms used to describe the current government?
Well, like I said, you know, I've been issued that Ali Ndume actually stated the obvious. And that is to say that I agree with what he said. And like my friend rightly said there, the manner of approach was quite wrong. As a high-ranking member of the party, as a high-ranking member of the National Assembly, he shouldn't have just gone directly to the media to vituperate, you know, make those unguarded utterances that he made. For me, I think he stated the obvious. Sincerely speaking, even before Ali Ndume comes out to say some of these things, most of us has questioned the competence and the capacity of those around Mr. President, talking about the ministers, because some of them seems not to understand the vision and mission of the renewed, administration. So if you look at what Ndume is saying, he's stating the obvious, he's telling the truth, but the manner in which he went about it is the issues. Nigerians are with him on this thing, on what he said, but he shouldn't have just gone directly to the media to state it. That's why I said he should have gone through the leadership of the party, because both Ndume and the president are there under the platform of the All Progressive Congress. What Ali Ndume went to the media to do is to demarket the party, and that is why the party woke up to say, no, it's demarketing the party that brought him there, based on the privileged position he has as the senator and chief whip, remove him. And that is what they did. But you see, again, I am not also in support of removing him as the chief whip. He's rather making the situation worse. Right now he will attract the sympathy of Nigeria. I think, the Senate should have interfaced with him, and then if there is a way he should stand down apology, they should have, they should have had to do that. But for them to call him, and then, remove him from that position, I think is going to attract a lot of sympathy from Nigerians, and it's responsible. Now, let me also say about, personal, because he's not talking on the level of assessing the president on personal ground. If it is on personal ground, that is why I said that there are processes you must go through. The chief of staff is the gatekeeper to the president. Every appointment is scheduled by the chief of staff. So there is nothing wrong for him to have approached the chief of staff to say, I want to see Mr. President and bring his attention so issues. There is nothing wrong with that.
Well, I think he also...
see the president today, the gatekeeper is the chief of staff, and you must route your appointment to him for you to see, the chief of staff, Mr. President.
I'm sure in that interview he also spoke about the chief of staff. I think he mentioned him in that interview as also possibly one of hindrances to gaining access to Mr. President. I need to be sure, but we need to wrap up here. Judith Johnson, I want you to once again speak on what this means if the Senate President receiving a letter from the APC couldn't defend his fellow senator who has the freedom to express himself.
I've said it earlier, and I think that it's important moving forward that senators that were elected should be able to assert the independence of the legislature.
So bear in mind, not long ago, a senator was suspended for also...
talking about the budget.
Speaks to one of the talking points which you raised, the intolerance of criticism. And we say this, in democracy, majority will have their way, minority will have their say. And it's important for us to allow any culture that does not tolerate dissent is not ready for growth. All of us cannot sleep and put our eyes together. So you must put in place a culture whereby people can express dissent. And dissent enables you to evaluate whatever you are doing, whether you're on the right track or you're on the wrong track. And I think that this present administration need to work on the level of tolerance to criticism.
Absolutely.
Because for them to move forward, they need to understand that they must have divergent view in order to review whatever steps they are taking. And it's very, very important. And the Chief of Staff has a role. A lot of talk has gotten to the office of the Chief of Staff with respect to not even coming from Ndume alone. Yeah. You have had it from Grapevine and the rest of it. And I think the Chief of Staff has a role to play whether the president is successful or is not successful. Because access to the president is important.
Mr. Lancha, thank you for your time with us. Jide Johnson, thank you for your time. We have to go on a break now, and when we come back, we'll be reviewing the papers. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're reviewing the papers with you this morning. Joining us to analyze it, we have CKN, who is, of course, the publisher of CKN News, Chris Kendewandu. It's good to have you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's nice to be here.
Always
you
a
guys
pleasure
are looking
to
so
have you.
sharp this morning.
The real sharp people are the people wearing blue on this set.
And you wear blue. They don't see your trousers.
And you wear blue.
You wear blue too.
I wear blue inside.
Yes. I wear blue in your hands.
Yes.
Okay, let's go through the papers. We're starting off with the Punch newspaper this morning. On the front page of the Punch, the big story there is IOCs still causing crude supply crisis. Dangote refinery cries out. IOC is referring us to international trading arms for crude purchase, says Dangote refinery. Firms still pushing for dollar payments, says Koran, flays middlemen for hijacking supply. North tops applicants list as federal government disburses student loan. Over 600,000 Nigerians sought asylum abroad under Buhari, according to report. I wonder what the numbers will look like after Tinubu. UI students protest 10-hour electricity rationing tuition hike. 401 Osun local government caretaker ESCOs resigned over Supreme Court judgment. Tinubu 6 trillion naira as 2024 budget hits 34.9 trillion naira. Federal government gets over $751 million World Bank loan. PDP governors ask federal government to fast-track minimum wage talks. Senate sacks Ndume as chief whip over anti-Tinubu comments. That's all on the Punch. Let's head over to the next paper.
Daily Independent newspapers next. PDP governors back Fubara move to tackle Rivers crisis. I did see that, I think someone had stated that it's coming too little, too late. That they should have stood up for him a long time ago. The party itself should have stood up for him a long time ago. They also lament the state of the economy as they seek credible elections, express optimism of returning to power in 2027. Support Labour's demand for enhanced minimum wage. Oh, that's also on the same story. Senate, APC draw flag over Ndume's removal as chief whip. New Central TV partners Nairametrics to produce Market Plus. I think everyone should keep their eyes open for that one. We can also find here government's weakened adoption of 5G as 57.55 subscribers still on 2G. Tinubu ties issuing mining license to local value addition, and also northern institutions stop applications for federal government student loan facility. Top of the screen there, Tinubu may announce new minimum wage figures today. And in Edo State, court reinstated Shoaibu as Deputy Governor affirms Ighodalo Akpata candidacies. Edo Assembly appeals judgment on Shoaibu. Let's get straight to Mr. Wandu this morning. You probably will start with the story on Ali Ndume as quickly as possible. We just got off a conversation with it, but what are your thoughts on his suspension as chief whip or his removal as chief whip?
I thought we've trashed that enough. We would have got to understand. But, okay, my view on it. There are certain things we need to understand. First and foremost, every Nigerian has a right we call freedom of speech. That is enshrined. in the 99 Constitution as amended, you have a right, freedom of speech, as we say, to say whatever you want to say. But if you say beyond what is supposed to be, which seems to be reasonable, probably you'll be charged for sedition, you could decide to charge for cyber crime or whatever. Second one is that we also have what is called legislative privilege. As a legislator, once you are within the chambers of the National Assembly or even State House of Assembly, anything you say within that hallowed chamber, you cannot be held for it. None. You cannot be charged for it because that is like a fortress for you. Yeah. You are immune, just that the immunity that the governors and the presidents enjoy, you as a legislator enjoys that privilege once you are within the hallowed chamber and you say whatever you say. But beyond that, if you say anything beyond that, outside that confine, you can be held responsible. I personally didn't see much in what Ndu may say. If he's talking about food inflation, how Nigerians are suffering and likes, that is a fact. Every one of us knows that. We say that on a daily basis on this program, other programs. But the only challenge I have is the medium with which our leaders try to talk. BBC is a, quote unquote, is not a Nigerian platform. It's not a Nigerian broadcast. And I always say that, why is it that they don't say this on our national television? Because once it's on, despite the fact that it's Hausa, but once it goes on BBC, it has gone international. And whatever you say is the impression people get about the country. And being a leader, I also believe that Ali Ndume has the privilege of being a ranking member of the National Assembly and the leader within the, and I think that normal ways of passing on information within the ranks, within the Senate, through whatever mechanism they have to be able to do that. As I said, I don't have any problem with when he talked about the sufferings of Nigeria. The only place I have problem with is where he said that the president is not accessible and even his ministers cannot see him. That is a serious indictment, if you understand.
Yeah. I mean,
so that is how I feel. And I don't know. Somebody said I've not been able to verify that. I could have done that. I heard that I think the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of States, Agriculture is same state with him from Borno State. And when you start saying that ministers, and you are talking of issue of food inflation and the rest of them, the impression I get is that probably you have spoken with the minister. And the minister, who is also from your state, now told you that, even me as a minister cannot have access to the president. But
he gave, so we could go to other things. You know, I think he was describing it from his own perspective and maybe also from what he's also experienced or heard from other people. He also said that he had seen Mr. President, once, and Mr. President had asked him, why don't you come around? And then he told Mr. President, it's because of the people around you. They wouldn't let me in. They're the ones, shielding you, that kind of thing. Not in those exact words, but that's what he alluded to. And so it may be, again, it very likely is from his own perspective and, how he has also made attempts on success.
Let me tell you, the president is not somebody you see every day. There is a channel, in whichever country you find yourself. There are channels through which you see a president, because the president is very, very busy grappling with. This is a president that is supervising over 42 ministries, if you understand. Just quickly, let me just wrap on that. There are always channels. The basic channel to see the president is either the chief of staff or for the ministers, normally through the SGF and also chief of staff. Except you meet the president at an event. Do you understand? And you have the privilege. So most often than not, it is not always, and let me put this at even Ali Ndume as a senator, just put it this way. Do you think it's just easy for you to just walk to the National Assembly? Yeah, but you want to say Ali Ndume? If you understand what I mean.
So the point here is that nobody's disregarding the fact that it's not, you don't just walk into Aso Rock. I get that, but I'm sure that Ali Ndume has been in that space for many, many years. So they understand the proximity that they themselves as high-ranking senators and high-ranking members of the APC should have to the president. And I'm talking about from Obasanjo's time to Yar'Adua to Goodluck to Buhari's time. They understand how it works. And so if he is complaining, he must have seen that, okay, this is not what we are used to. It's not because he's expecting to simply enter his car and drive into Aso Rock and say, Mr. President.
I think the conversation should actually be not when he's seeing the president. No, the conversation should be around, should he have been removed as the chief whip of the Senate? I think that is what we should be talking. I think that was. I personally feel that what he did or what he said, yes, I totally disagree with that.
All right, let's go
opinion.
to still on the point where the president seeks an extra 6 trillion naira for the 2024 budget. Of course, moving it to 34.9 trillion naira.
I think it was initially about 28. Don't forget that one of the reasons why Ningi was suspended at a point was because he would raise an issue. And, you know, Nigerians will find a way of just not listening to people.
That issue, was it ever investigated?
It was never investigated. They just suspended and just brought him back. So that is why when you talk of a kind of privilege, some of these people, some of them have inner privilege to know what is going on, which is not known to you and I. Whether the president can ask for an additional listing, I don't think that he has the power. It is within him to be able to do that. But the fact I want to ask is that the 28 trillion that which was already appropriated and approved by the National Assembly, what have we done with it?
All right. While we're figuring out the answer to that question, we have a call from Jos. Good morning. Thank you for calling. Alhai, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Thank you. You see, the truth is that this issue of Ndume, they are not being sincere to Nigerians from the Senate. You understand? He has the right to speak as an individual, freedom of speech. For him to have come out to speak that you can't see the president, yes, we know that the president cannot be seen by everyone. But at least, for whatever reasons he must have presented to see the president consigning the nation, he should be allowed to see the president. Because you see, the masses, the general masses don't have access to all these leaders. That is why we have them as representatives there, so that we'll be able to now present whatever it is that the masses are going through in the country. They have been unfair in Ndume. It is not about... so now, taking him from that position doesn't stop him from speaking. That is just the truth. So, see, for me, as far as the whole thing is, the senators that did this didn't do it in good faith. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for calling. Okay, yes, you were saying the 28 trillion. What was done with it?
What have we done? We still have, it hasn't run out. So I personally have not seen the details of the new this thing from the president, request from the president, which I know that the National Assembly will definitely approve, whether we like it or not. But if it's based on projects for capital development, capital projects and the rest of them, I'm going for it. But you should also look at it from the point that Nigerians generally are not happy, because I personally think that what we should be looking at now is how to alleviate poverty as it is, raise agriculture to a level. We should be declaring an emergency on agriculture and food. We should be having a revolution, quote unquote, on food security. Yeah. That is the issue. And if you look at what happened in Kenya just recently, how many, for what, just raising of tax, I would think that, oh, it can happen in Kenya, it can't happen in Nigeria.
Oh, there have been conversations about a potential protest here.
They have. I don't know of that, some people are talking about. But even after that little process that the president of Kenya thought that it was a joke, has led to the sack of all his ministers, has led to the sack of the Inspector General of Police. And the guys are saying, we're not about you go, you should go.
Yeah. Let's hear from Tony Eze calling from Benue State. Good morning. Thank you for calling.
Good morning.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I want to comment on Ndume's issue. I want to tell us that Ndume is nonsense. Ndume is there when they are sharing SUVG. He didn't say anything bad about it. Now, one of presidential aides to Tinubu said, when it's time to take the children to work in PDM, Ndume has no issue. When it's time to take the children to work in N6.2, he has no issue. I think those people, they are part of the problem that we have. And for him to come up and start complaining like this, without even going to the national chairman to complain to him, without even going to party to complain to him, he comes to national TV and start talking about these things. I'm not giving him plus to it. They are the part of the problem that we are having. Thank you. Good morning.
All right.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us and for calling in. Okay, I want us to quickly see if we can touch the next paper. We've been on the Punch for a while, so let's move on to the second paper, the Daily Independent.
Yeah.
On the front page of the Daily Independent, the big story, PDP governors back for Bara move to tackle Rivers crisis. So let's talk about that again. We saw the latest update was that he'd been barred from spending from the national budget because he has refused to represent, his budget to the Martin Amewile-led assembly.
Yes, I would say to a large extent, congratulations to Governor Fubara. At least he's getting the backing of his colleagues. I just came back from Port Harcourt. I was in Port Harcourt for about a week, and I went to interview some of the government officials for my TV program, Inside Politics with CK. And one of the guests I spoke with, which will be heading in the next few days, was the Commissioner for Information in Rivers State, as well as the Commissioner of Police in Rivers State. But let me tell you this. This is not the end of it. They've gone on appeal, and let's see what the appeal court says, and finally the Supreme Court on the matter.
Okay.
All right.
I believe that's the majority of the stories that we have.
I think
let's talk about Dangote. Let's talk about Dangote.
Yes,
very important.
Please, yes.
Let's talk about Dangote. Again, Dangote yesterday raised a fundamental issue. He spoke about a week or so.
He's been speaking. He's been in the news every day.
He has been in the news, and he's saying that he repeats what he said, that the IOCs are frustrating his efforts. Now that what the IOCs are doing is that asking him to go and negotiate with their partners abroad to now buy crude oil that is coming from Nigeria, exported abroad. He will now negotiate with them, then come back to them. Who does that? That they are asking him to pay in dollars. Who does that? For a product that we get locally. And I don't blame them. I don't blame the IOCs. I blame the government, our government.
I was going to say that.
We blame our government because anything happened. I've always said Nigeria is just like Charlie Boy show of those days. Anything can happen on Charlie Boy show. Just on Charlie Boy show. When it starts to show, you won't know what's happened. That is what is happening. And what is more even annoying to me and very surprising is that we have a Minister of Petroleum. The Minister of Petroleum is President Bola Tinubu, not Lokpobiri. Lokpobiri is Minister of State, who is just a second, I don't know what about to call it. So if anything is happening, I expect the President to have stepped in as the Minister of Petroleum now to make sure that you don't get this wrong. If a whole Dangote, with the kind of issue that we're looking at having with petroleum and the rest of them, and we've gotten a refinery that can be able to help us solve our problem, and we are still dilly-dallying on how to be able to make him have products. He has to start importing crude oil from Brazil, from USA.
It's very embarrassing to see.
It is not only bad. And we've become a laughingstock in the Committee of Nations.
Right.
Nigeria is a member of OPEC. And you know what that means? I don't know of any other nation in the world who is a member of OPEC that imports crude oil or petroleum products. So that is how it's happened. So that is when I talk about this issue of we are the president is asking for 6 trillion, asking for this thing. We are living, that's what you call, you are living your headache and run after lapa. You know what lapa is? Dandruff. You cannot have you have that, but maybe I have serious headache. You are living your headache that is going to kill you and run after lapa. So those are the issues. So if Dangote is talking, he's not talking to the IOCs. If you are very, very intelligent as somebody that is political, and you know that Dangote is directly throwing an arrow at the presidency and the government that you are the one allowing these things to fail. But he cannot call the president. He cannot just be talking about the president.
That would be for...
You understand what I'm trying to say? But we have to get the issue resolved as quickly as possible. They told us, you remember since last year, they been telling us that Port Harcourt refinery is going to work.
I think
now they push it
August.
again to September, to August.
Yeah.
Then they're now telling you again that they're going to start exporting petroleum products by December. Are they guys serious at all?
All right, Chris Kendewandu, really, really interesting having you, as always. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on these stories.
Thank you.
We will take a short break. When we come back, we continue this morning on Breakfast Central. Stay with us.
It's been conflict of information ever since news of the lifting of the UAE ban on Nigeria surfaced. Many questions have been in the air since the United Arab Emirates government denied knowledge of requirements for Nigerians to have a $10,000 bank balance minimum and payment of 640,000 naira for a document verification number to come into the UAE. Now, this contradicts the information that was released to Nigerians by its Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris. According to the cable newspaper, the UAE's Department of Economy and Tourism disclaimed affiliation with the Document Verification Hub, the DV Hub website, which listed the controversial requirements.
Now, UAE Dubai's General Directorate of Residency and Foreign Affairs also denies approving $10,000 bank balance and 640,000 naira fee as visa application requirements for Nigerians. Many Nigerians have asked questions since this revelation came to light yesterday. The federal government is yet to address the subject.
Joining us to discuss this is journalist David Hundeng. Good morning, David. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, I think we'll go back to the beginning as to how we got here. The Minister of Information did share reports about the fact that the UAE visa ban had been lifted, shared a website on X, and it was from visiting the website that Nigerians were able to confirm that, confirm then that there was a 640,000 naira fee for the document verification website. Talk to us about how we've gotten from that place to now finding out that those websites do not belong to the UAE.
Well, so someone on Twitter, I remember, made a comment to the effect of, I'm sure this money, this 640,000 naira isn't actually going to the UAE government, that he's sure that it's actually the Nigerian government or people linked to the Nigerian government that have created some sort of arbitrage opportunity there. And to be honest, that, reflexively, that checked out, because that's like a regular business model within the Nigerian system. So the first thing I did was to go check the registration of the websites on whois. So who actually owns the website? Because the first thing I noted was all official UAE government websites end with the domain .gov.ae. This website ended with the domain .ae, which is a freely accessible domain. It's not a UAE government domain. But again, the people behind it obviously don't expect Nigerians to be able to tell that there's a difference. So there was a deliberate attempt to misrepresent this website as a UAE or government official website, which it categorically was not. It was .ae. So I went to find out who is behind this thing. And one of the very first results that came up was from a platform called Scam Advisor, which basically looks out for such websites and advises visitors as to the reliability of this website. And it said very clearly that the actual beneficial owner of this website is hiding their identity using a paid service. So usually how that works is there's a middleman or an entity that specializes in operating or registering websites on behalf of clients. So the client's identity isn't displayed on the whois record. It's the middleman's identity. And this middleman turned out to be this Canadian fellow called John Goffrey. And when I did some little research on this fellow, it turned out that this fellow works for a Spanish IT company that specializes in creating sustainable revenues for African governments. So essentially, if you're familiar with the business model of Alpha Beta Consulting in Lagos, this is basically the Spanish version of Alpha Beta, but it only seems to do any business in Africa. So just off of that alone, already you could tell very clearly what was going on here. Someone has deliberately misrepresented a private website with a .ae domain as a UAE government website, and then the Minister of Information has gone and tweeted it as though it's something that came from the UAE authorities, which it categorically did not. And then you've been able to establish that the person, whoever is actually behind this website, is actually hiding their identity. And they're using this Canadian middleman working for this Spanish IT company that specializes in inserting itself into arbitrage opportunities in African public sector spaces. And my hypothesis was that there's a private entity that has positioned itself to make money from an inefficiency in the Nigerian public sector. This is a very common way of making money, illicit money in the Nigerian public space, where, hypothetically speaking, there's a road and the road is freely accessible. So what you then do is you go put up a gate in the middle of the road and start charging people to pass through it. So you've created an income opportunity for yourself without creating any value for people. That's a very regular way of becoming rich in the Nigerian public sector.
Yeah. Is it possible?
And my hypothesis was...
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is it possible that Mohammed Idris is, was not aware? Or, are you maybe alluding to the fact that, he also was aware that this might have been a fraudulent website, and the whole idea of charging Nigerians 640,000 naira per person, he's very much aware. Is there that possibility?
Well, he honestly cannot say that he's not aware. First of all, it's his job to be aware. He's the Minister of Information. Secondly, he put it out in official communication. So the idea of him not being aware doesn't come into it at all. As a cabinet minister whose job it is to provide definitive information to the public, any statement or any information put out in an official capacity, because this went out not just on his own Twitter handle, it also went out on the Ministry of Information's public channels as well. So any sort of information like that is put out officially, you have to assume that he's aware or the ministry is aware. So him not being aware doesn't come into it at all. And, just to complete what I was saying earlier, it then came out yesterday when the cable, the online newspaper, then did its own separate verification and reached out to the UAE authorities, who then stated very clearly that they do not know anything about this website. This website has nothing to do with them. So it's clear to see what has happened here. Apparently, the UAE has actually lifted the visa ban against Nigeria and has probably given the Nigerian government some sort of indication that there needs to be some form of verification of people's identities before they go on to apply for UAE visas. I don't know whether that happened for a fact. That's just a guess that I'm making. And then someone within the Nigerian establishment got a brainwave that their way to make money out of this again was to put up a gate in the middle of a road where people are passing freely. So document verification, which is not a thing that anyone should need to pay for, because you are the Nigerian government screening people who are presenting Nigerian government issued ID. What are you charging them for? And then you're not just charging them. This is not 5,000 naira I'm talking about. This is 640,000 naira. And apparently it's valid for only 14 days at a time, meaning that anyone who travels to Dubai or Abu Dhabi multiple times a year is going to part with millions of naira just to be able to travel. And that money is not going to the UAE authorities. That money is going to an undisclosed private actor within the Nigerian pseudo-public space.
I mean, you just gave a core example that someone is putting a gate on a free road. And if this is confirmed, I'm hoping that the government addresses this today. If this is confirmed to be true, it's no different from those thugs who, stop people on the road to collect extra money for them to actually pass when they should actually be able to pass. David, what picture are we painting? We've had a back and forth with the UAE in the past couple of years. What message are we sending about Nigeria to the UAE and to the rest of the world?
Well, the message, unfortunately, that we're sending is that Nigeria is a country that is ruled by those kinds of area boys that you described, the people who stop you on the road and collect money from you for no reason whatsoever. Otherwise, they don't let you pass. That's the perception that is being given to the world now, that in addition to the many negative stereotypes that afflict Nigerians as a people, that even the Nigerian government itself is essentially a criminal entity and will stop at nothing to enact this criminality, including against its own people. Because where you have a UAE government responding to an inquiry from a media outlet and saying that we don't know anything about this, they're actively distancing themselves from this. That in itself is a very powerful statement. That in itself says something, because typically what would happen in a diplomatic setting like that is, so as to avoid creating controversy or creating embarrassment for the counterparty, the UAE embassy would probably say something to the effect of, we'll go seek for clarification or something. They wouldn't put out a definitive statement saying this didn't emanate from us. But that's exactly what they did. So that in itself, if you're familiar with how diplomacy works, that in itself is a statement of exasperation. That shows that they are tired of these Nigerians, that these guys, we have, as you said, we've gone back and forth with them for I don't know how long now. It's happened twice already that the Nigerian government has come out and told lies that, oh, the UAE visa ban has been lifted. The first time it was CNN that did a fact check, very embarrassing, and said, no, this didn't happen. Then it happened again. And then this has happened again, and then the UAE authorities themselves are saying, whatever is happening between you people and your government, it's between you and your government. We don't have any hand in this. Please don't disturb us, because that was essentially what that statement said.
Yeah.
So I think that really says it.
I mean, I think it's just very, very, very embarrassing. I don't think there's any other way to describe it, and I'm hoping that there's a response by the Nigerian government to what we are currently, discussing. Olive?
Let's also, look at what other Nigerians are saying about it. It's been many conversations happening on X. Let's take a few tweets. Nefertiti's Crush, interesting handle. It says, if not for David Hunde, imagine the amount of people that would have rushed to pay that 640K. Federal government don't turn Yahoo boys. APC must be stopped. We must protest for good governance. Enough is enough. Let's move away from this and see a few other tweets regarding this conversation. Benassi, I bet you people would have overlooked the scam if it was below 100,000. Do you know how much you have to hate your citizens to want to scam them of 640,000 naira in these terrible times? And the next one is from Fortune. By the time Bola and his crooks, you know what? Let's just we've run out of time for these tweets. We can't, take a number of them. But the question would be that, how do we proceed from here, David? What explanations or what next steps do we expect? Are we expecting feedback? Are we expecting the government to address this? Do we know if some people have even already paid the 640,000 naira? And if they have, are we expecting a refund? Or should they expect a refund?
So what I expect will happen is what typically tends to happen when the government is caught with its pants down. And I know this because this happened. In fact, I sat down on this very TV station almost exactly a year ago to the day, discussing a very similar scandal in a different space, the Nigeria Air scandal, where again, somebody magicked something out of thin air and created a huge international embarrassment for the country. And the government's response to that was to cover their eyes and cover their ears and cover their mouths. Nobody said anything. It wasn't until the new Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, came in, and then there was some movement, and then eventually they admitted it, which was months later. But in the immediate aftermath of being exposed, they will do what the Nigerian government always does, which is pretend that nothing happened and just ignore it. I hope that people move on to the next thing, because again, the calculation is that Nigerians have the attention span of goldfish. So that's exactly what they're hoping will happen. I don't know whether anyone actually paid that 640,000 naira. I hope they didn't, because if they did, well, best of luck to them. I don't think they're going to be seeing that money again, but we'll see.
All right. We hope that there's a response from the Nigerian government. David Hunde, thanks a lot for your time, as always. Thanks for stopping by. We'll speak with you again soon.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. Until we come your way again, I'm Olive MOD.
And I am Osawa Ogbon. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.